6 weeks from today, Joe Biden will be sworn in as the next president. And in addition to the COVID crisis, he faces a spiraling epidemic of gun violence in this country. Deaths have soared this year, and so have gun sales. Tonight in our series, America in Transition, our Devin Dwyer takes a closer look.
For gun dealers like Brandon Wexler of Delray Beach, Florida, 2020 has been a banner year.
When COVID initially hit the streets in the United States of America, business really started to take off almost, as far as an analogy, prepping for a hurricane in South Florida.
A run on guns in the midst of what experts call a perfect storm. The pandemic, recession, civil unrest, and divisive presidential election, all breeding fear.
I've never owned a gun. I've never wanted a gun. I've never had a gun in my home. This one and this one.
Mother of three, Trish Baudette, recently bought handguns for herself and her 25-year-old daughter.
It really bothers me when I watch things on the news, when you talk about the riots and the looting and the violence that's happening. To be honest with you, pulling a gun is the last thing that I ever want to do. But I want to know that if I need to protect myself, my family, my children, that I can do that.
An estimated 21 million guns have been sold so far in 2020. That's up 73% over the same period last year. Industry analysts say first-time buyers, many of them women, are a big part of the surge.
My nightmare scenario would be being at home, alone, middle of the night, and it's just myself, and the boys, and someone, coming in to harm us.
Erin Hart, a recently divorced mother of two, says social and political polarization in her community have shaken her sense of safety.
When things start to hit, a little closer to home, it kind of makes you sit up and think about it.
The presidential transition is also a huge factor, experts say, as Democratic President-elect Joe Biden vows to push sweeping new gun restrictions.
Generally, it's true that when we have a president coming from the Democratic Party, that we see higher firearms demand and associated sales, primarily stimulated by the fear that there may be federal legislation pushed through.
So this is one of the common models here.
In March, we saw fear buying up close in Virginia as Democrats in that state prepared to enact the toughest package of new gun laws in a generation.
There's a lot of panic happening. I also believe that the gun industry and the NRA, and to some extent even the administration, are stoking people's fear.
Biden plans a gun safety crackdown on day one, asking Congress to repeal liability protections for gun makers and close loopholes for background checks.
Our enemy is the gun manufacturers, not the NRA.
He also wants to ban production of assault weapons, require registration for some guns, limit gun purchases to one per month, and end all online sales. It'll be a tough sell in a narrowly divided Congress.
I don't know when these laws will be passed, but I think that's put people in I better buy my gun now or I'm not going to be able to ever get it again.
Add to that months of racial unrest that some say has left local law enforcement more timid to respond to crimes, as we heard in Minneapolis earlier this year.
After this whole George Floyd incident, the crime rate in Minneapolis has just skyrocketed. And now they're wondering, why the police can't get there quick enough because there is no police, but yet they want to defund the police.
Last week, the Minneapolis City Council cut $8 million from their police budget. Several other major U.S. cities have pulled back spending on police, but by one analysis, most have maintained or increased police budgets for next year.
The arrow has gone too far the other way on this. So we have to come back to basics and be smart about this.
The gun industry says the perception of defunding police is driving sales.
People, again, are taking a look at what's around them, taking stock of their own security and their safety needs, and they're realizing that their elected officials are abandoning them.
As gun sales surge, so have gun deaths. Already 1,600 more lives lost than last year and climbing by the day. Among the newest victims, 1-year-old Carmelo Duncan of Washington, D.C., killed inside his family's car this month in a drive-by shooting.
We're talking about a 1-year-old. Maybe not even knows how to walk yet.
Over the last 4 years, bullets have killed at least 155,000 Americans. Parkland High School, the Las Vegas Strip, a Sutherland Springs, Texas church, and a Walmart in El Paso, 4 of the 10 deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history, all since 2016.
I just saw a man in my community shot and killed, and like that culture, like me internalizing that, I was just like, that's just what's normal here in Milwaukee, but it shouldn't be that normal. That culture should not be normalized.
Bria Smith was among hundreds of thousands of young people that marched on Washington in 2018, an extraordinary call for action. President Trump promised to respond.
We don't want guns in the hands of the wrong people. I think that the Republicans are going to be great and lead the charge along with the Democrats.
But years later, those promises are unfulfilled. Trump, like his predecessor Barack Obama, unwilling or unable to break the gridlock in Congress, which hasn't passed a major gun safety bill in decades.
Do you believe, Bria, that the 2020 election will be a turning point on gun safety? I mean, you sound pretty optimistic.
But when you look at the bigger picture, it's making sure that you have administration that cares for you set in place first. I mean, we had our president willingly say on a public debate to, the bad boys to stand by and stand back. It's like this weird romanticizing of gun culture in our country.
That deep-seated culture is likely here to stay. And with gun sales soaring, many advocates say the most urgent need is ensuring safer use of guns already out there and better training for police.
We're starting to really rebrand. Our mission before was to eradicate all gun violence across the country, across the globe. But right now, I think it's just taking construction to reimagine.
Our hope, our prayer is that those individuals are getting some safety training, that they learn how to properly use and store weapons if they choose to keep them in their home.
At WEX, Gunworks safety training is a top priority, which several of the newest graduates say is a smart idea for all Americans.
It's extremely important. I don't want to be in a position where I unnecessarily hurt somebody by my negligence.
I think that even if you don't own a gun, that it's imperative that you take a safety course in handling one. You never know when you could be put in a position or a situation where you would come across one.
And despite the divide over Biden's gun proposals, these gun owners say stronger background checks are something everyone should get behind.
As far as the president-elect, the background checks are the most important thing there is. Everyone gets a background check, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
For ABC News Live, I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.